Forbidden Door 2023 has just concluded, and the news is in. Will Ospreay defeated Kenny Omega for the IWGP US Championship in a banger of a match. It was pretty good. I'm going to have my very quick thoughts here on Forbidden Door 2023. Very quick speed review, if you will. Immediate thoughts and feelings. If you're new here to the channel, hello, I'm Pete Cornell. Please do subscribe, like the video, etc. Because after every single pay-per-view that we end up doing live reactions for on the WrestleTalk podcast channel, we'll have one of these like wrap-up videos. So if you want to know what happened at Forbidden Door 2023, this is the video to watch. And yes, Will Ospreay defeated Kenny Omega in, I think, match of the night. And it was a brutal match. It was, the best way I've heard it described is a war. It wasn't flashy. It was just two people beating the hell out of each other for a long time. This match went 39 minutes. And it was captivating for every single one of them. There were incredible spots. There were amazing moments all throughout, including Will Ospreay hitting a one-winged angel and Kenny Omega kicking out at one, which of course is a throwback to the Revolution 2020 tag match where he kicked out of one with the tribute to Kota Ibushi, the Golden Lovers, the Gomaye. So really, really cool throwback on that one. There is a small part of the match which I think wasn't very good, which was that Don Callis was that obviously his presence was there. He had two security guards. He came out with Will Ospreay at the start. Very quickly, he was ejected from the match, but then later on he came back down and was just allowed back with no repercussions and was allowed to interfere really heavily. Like he was pulling Ospreay out of the ring. He was shielding him from attacks, like really overt interference. And he handed Ospreay a screwdriver, and Ospreay stabbed Omega in the head with it. If that had been the finish of the match, I think it would have been incredibly disappointing. But it wasn't, because it ended in a fantastic near fall where Kenny just managed to get his foot on the bottom rope afterwards, and it worked out so well. Incredible match. Would highly recommend. Match of the year contender for sure. Very noteworthy show overall. But that, I think, was the biggest highlight of the show. It was not the main event, however, because the main event was reserved for Kazuchika Okada versus Bryan Danielson. Now, a lot of people had very high expectations of this match going into it, and I think, for the most part, it very much lived up to it. While I still think that Ospreay and Omega was the better match overall, this one was a very, very different style, and I think the emotion of Ospreay and Omega really elevated that match, whereas in this match, it was just two great wrestlers doing a great technical showcase match and showcasing why they are the best wrestlers in the world. And for me, the way that they managed to pull that off and have a really surprising finish to it was awesome. Like, there was obviously a couple rainmakers, a couple of knees, but the whole match, Bryan Danielson was trying to get in the label lock. And at one point he had injured his arm to the point where he basically only had one arm to use for this, for the rest of the match. He managed to get in the label lock, but it was kind of weak at the start, and he only had one arm, then he managed to get two arms, managed to lock the fingers a little bit. It was a war to even lock on this submission. Had him in the label lock for a while. Okada reached for the ropes, he pulled his arm back to stop him tapping, had him in a submission, another submission for a little while, held that for ages and ages and ages, and then Okada, he gets out of it, and then he puts Okada's hand underneath his foot and just brings it back to an uncomfortable degree, to the point where Okada just taps. And that's the match. Really unexpected. A finish that kind of came out of nowhere, but also makes perfect sense in the narrative of the match that they were telling, and also in the fact that the submission was absolutely brutal. Like, of course Okada's going to tap from that. Really unexpected finish, but really, really great. And I think those two matches sell Forbidden Door 2023 on their own. There were, of course, a bunch of other matches on this card. And I think a lot of the pre-show matches were pretty good. There was, of course, Willow Nightingale and Toni Storm, which is pretty good. There's a couple of very strange bits on this show, in that there was a very sudden, anticlimactic finish to MGF versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. It was good. It was a good match. I think a lot of people may have had expectations of that match to be a little bit higher than what it was, but it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. It was a good match, and it started off the show. It was the opener of the main card, and it had a lot of sports entertainment stuff to start with little rope breaks with Bryce Remsburg and things like that. So there was bits and pieces of it that were good, or even great at times. But overall, I think that match was a good opener, whereas some of the other highlights on the show were great. The six-man tag match with Sting and Darby Allin and Naito and Jericho and Guevara and Suzuki was, again, it was a very good match, very entertaining parts. However, this did come right after Ospreay and Omega, and this is going to be the one criticism that I will always have for AEW pay-per-views, and I know I'm probably going to get yelled at in the comments, and people are just going to tell me to grow up, but I do think there is a severe lack of downtime between matches. Like, I think on the opposite end of the scale, WWE does it too much, where you have too much time in between matches, where you have ads and you have all the other stuff that they do. Whereas with AEW, match ends, you probably have like 30 seconds to a minute, and then the next match starts, which at times is not enough time to process what's just happened. For example, there were some big moments on this show, like, as I was mentioning in the six-man tag, this came immediately after Ospreay and Omega, so the crowd was still kind of processing what had just happened in the previous match, and took them a little while to get into this one. And I think it suffered a little bit because of that, but it was a very strange finish, in that there was a 630 through a table from Sammy Guevara onto Sting. Sammy got wiped out. Sting came back into the ring before Sammy. Sammy was not seen again for the rest of the match, which kind of makes it seem like maybe Sting was supposed to dodge that? I'm not sure. It looked a bit strange, and the finish seemed to be a little bit weird, in that there was a slight botch, and like there was a lariat from Sting that didn't quite connect properly, and then Naito just got the pin. It was a bit weird, but it was fine. Again, it was good. Some other really big highlights on the card, though, was the Fatal 4-Way match for the International title. That was great from start to finish. Cassidy, Zack Sabre Jr., and the others that were in that match that literally I can't remember right now, Daniel Garcia and Shibata. Great from start to finish. Yeah, just a really, really fun match. Some great wrestling and story being told throughout it. Started off, of course, with like the little comedy kicks from Orange Cassidy, but very quickly just became 4 great wrestlers doing 4 great wrestling. Again, great match, would highly recommend. And also the 10-man tag with the Elite versus Blackpool Combat Club, with their subsidiaries and extra people on both sides as well, actually ended with Ishii getting the pin, which I did not see coming in a million years. But it's very, very cool to see. And again, it was just a really fun match, start to finish. I think they built these really interesting, like, single character dynamics between a lot of people, because in a 10-man tag, you can kind of just be one team versus another team. This had a lot of, like, interpersonal relationships with Kingston and Mox and Kingston and Claudio, and then you had a lot of Ishii and Takeshita in this match, because there was a lot of back and forth between those guys. So yeah, it was a very, very fun match. There was even one point where Kingston protected Mox from the double super kicks from the Young Bucks, but then later on Mox just cutted Kingston and didn't like protect him from anything. It was really, really good. And of course we have to talk about the heel turn heard around the world, I think, which was Sonata and Jungle Boy, Jack Perry. They had a solid enough time match, but again, that ended quite abruptly and weirdly, in that there was a 3 count, and then the referee checked Jack Perry's shoulders after the 3 count was called. So then the crowd were like, oh, did he get the 3? No, that is a 3 count. Okay, yeah, no, sure, that's the finish. It was a little bit strange in that sense, but afterwards there was, of course, the post-match angle where Jungle Boy turned heel and he beat up Hook. This was foreshadowed a little bit on TV, so a lot of people saw it coming. Not quite sure, like, of the reasoning yet, but then I guess they might be feuding over the FTW title, which don't know if that's important enough to be feuding over, really. But, you know, it is what it is. But regardless, though, I think overall, I think this is a very great show that people should definitely go out of their way to watch. I think it was very fun. From start to finish, there was nothing bad on this show at all. Unlike you could make criticism from like Double or Nothing, where there might have been one or two things that you didn't like, or a couple of matches that weren't up to scratch, basically. There was nothing bad on this show. Everything was good or better. And you can't really say much fairer than that on a show that lasts like 5 hours and has 13 matches, and all of them to be good or better is amazing. There's definitely some nitpicky points through those matches that don't make them perfect, but I think overall this is an amazing show and people should definitely give it a watch. Forbidden Door 2023 was really, really cool. Had a great time watching it. That is going to be my wrap-up of Forbidden Door 2023. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, please do subscribe to the channel. We do daily wrestling news videos, as well as a bunch of other really fun content. And please do like this video as well. I've been Pete Quinnell. Thank you so much for watching. See you in another video sometime. Goodbye.